Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Drewski with the Cryptidwarfare Conspiracies podcast and CW Operations and Survival. So hope you guys had a blessed week. I want to say thanks for stopping by yet again. Guys, we have got a good episode for y'all. This is going to be, I want to say part 2. This is going to be another episode. So history episode. So I suggest if you guys are history buffs, you guys want to learn more, get your notepads out, start taking notes and listen, because I got the best in the business right here. My good friend, Brice Witherow. If you guys haven't heard, I had him a couple episodes back. We talked about like the Civil War and the whole history of it. And not only that, he is a Civil War history buff. He is a war buff. He is also a reenactment actor when it comes to Civil War. So he's a first responder. Cheers to you, brother. Much respect on that. So if you guys want to go back and listen to the episode, I suggest you guys do, but this is going to be an entirely different episode, but also with more history. So anyways, with that, if you guys want to go back to it's on Spotify, it's on Apple, it's on Podbean, it's on YouTube, but it's episode 88. Okay, so it's labeled Civil War, Ghost Battle, Formations, and History. Bigfoot helping a Civil War soldier with war historian Brice Witherow. So I suggest you guys go check it out. Other than that, guys, so if you guys got anything like that, you guys want to hit me up, you guys got any experiences or anything like that, or if you guys are having any cryptid problems, shoot me an email. For the podcast, if you guys want to be on it, or if you guys got any experiences, it's cryptidwarfare@gmail.com. It's cryptidwarfare@gmail.com. You guys got any critter problems? You guys need any consulting? Go ahead and hit me up. C.W operations 17905@gmail.com. And I'm gonna give a big shout out to my buddy AG from Paranoid Radio for hooking me up with this awesome patch. And then my buddy Mike from Tac Patch. So he's the guy that supplies that stuff. So you guys need a good Tac Patch. Hit him up. And that advertisement should be literally before of what I'm talking about right now. So with all the people, with all the, I wouldn't say local businesses, but with all the small businesses. So Mike from Tac Patch, he's a good dude. So shout out to AG from Paranoid Radio again, brother. Thank you for the patch. So, all right, guys. Let's get to it. May I introduce to you yet again and once again, Brice Witherow. What's going on, Chief?
What's up, buddy?
You and I both had a long night of work.
Oh, dude.
I'm glad it's the weekend, man. Gosh.
Dude, I am very happy it's the weekend, man. It has been a crazy, crazy week at work.
Yeah, I hear that, dude. Yeah, you and I definitely took the mantle tonight. We definitely worked for our money tonight, big guy. That's all I'm saying.
A cold beer is calling my name. I tell you what.
I hear that, dude. That's why I got this cold ice brisk tea. But the beer's gonna be flowing tonight, probably. So
water for me right now.
I know. Yeah, for those of you usually watching me, I usually have a chew packed in there, but I left it out in my vehicle, and you know what? It's all good. I'm kind of like, I'm not going to do it right now. But anyways.
Slacking, man. Slacking.
I know, right? Slacking. Yeah, man. So I'm actually pretty excited, dude. We're going to be getting into, for all you guys who don't know, dude, you bloated out a bunch of good freaking points, man. Like bullet points on what we're going to talk about. So I'm excited. I didn't dive into any of this stuff because I want to have my face melted. So
yeah,
it's going to be good, man.
Yeah, I've been studying about this for the last 2 weeks. So kind of been going over and stuff. So it's a good little piece of information, good period that we're going to talk about here. So it's
So since we're on the history thing, I want to throw a little bit of history at you. So
okay,
I heard about this this story. It was off of Sasquatch Chronicles, and this other dude off of YouTube. It's called, oh my gosh, it's called Forgotten History. It is on YouTube. So this guy basically goes on facts and talks about a lot of history that's been forgotten, like dirty politicians, dirty presidents, things that happened throughout history that's literally been forgotten, but it's in the history books and nobody
Right.
talks about it. So the thing I'm gonna, since this is a cryptid channel and spiritual warfare and paranormal and Christianity channel and all that stuff and spiritual warfare and all that, I'm gonna talk about the Bigfoot War of 1855. I'm just gonna give you guys the cliff notes of this. So all you guys want to go check it out, check it out. It was really, really, really interesting, really good. So basically, it's literally that's exactly what it's labeled as the Bigfoot War of 1855. Okay, so the whole history suggests of it. Basically, there was a conflict between Bigfoot, Native Americans, and basically like the farmers of that area. So this all took place in LaFleur County in Oklahoma. So before it was called LaFleur County, it wasn't even called, it was just basically just a certain part of Oklahoma, right?
Right.
What's actually really cool was that after this happened, they named it LaFleur County. So in a nutshell, this happened back in 1855. So you had like the Choctaw Nation and the farmers and settlers of that area. They were actually coexisting. They were helping each other out at that time. Well, according to the story, according to the legend, to the Choctaw people, it was a band of Choctaw and Anglo farmers experienced mysterious events, including crop theft, livestock disappearances, and other food thefts. They were thinking by bandits, right? Or by like certain cowboys.
Yeah.
But what happened was to where it started to get really, really bad was women and kids started to go missing. So they thought these bandits were, because they basically set traps for these guys at the perimeter of their little town, right? So the Choctaw people were coming in and out. They were also living on the outskirts of this town with the settlers in the town. So they would do like free trades and stuff like that. So they would give up goods. They would actually barter gunpowder for certain crops.
Right.
They would barter metal for certain crops, stuff like that, and everything was flowing great. Well, the community was definitely getting along with the Choctaw Nation. Well, they all thought that there were a band of certain there's a band of certain cowboys like stealing their crops and stuff like that. But then when the women and children started to get stolen, they were like, okay, something's up. So that's when they started to set traps and stuff like that and having guards posted up at night. Well, these entities were literally like basically like migrating and figuring out their way past these traps and past these people who were doing basically almost like fire watch, right? So it got to a head to where the people of the Choctaw Nation and those Angler settlers, women and children, were getting stolen, and they've never came back, right? On both sides. So what happened is, so here is like the Bigfoot connection, okay? These bandits were never seen, and the Choctaw and the farmers gradually gained a basically they actually came together and they looked at it that this enemy that they had was actually cunning, right?
Yeah.
And the legend, or I should say, the history suggests that these bandits were Bigfoot, leading into the Bigfoot War. So they found tracks, they found all this stuff, and let's see, I'm getting freaking so with the whole part of that, after everything kind of came to a head, um, the Choctaw Nation got like their best warriors, and the farmers and stuff got like their best, basically like the best shooters and stuff. Well, reason why it's called LaFleur County, there's this guy named Peter LaFleur. He was half Choctaw, half Anglo, so he got respect on both sides. Okay. Turns out this guy was a soldier as well back in the day. So he got the best 13th warriors for the Choctaw Nation and like 13 more guys for the whole Anglo area. And they got together and they literally tracked these things down So it took them a whole day to ride. They found these footprints leading into this area, and there was a tree line about 500 yards after they freaking tracked these things all day, and it started to smell like death, right?
Oof.
Started to smell really, really bad. And according to the notes and stuff like that, Peter LaFleur literally looked through his, well, of course they didn't have like binoculars at the time, but they had like the certain like scopes,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Well, he looked through his scope and he literally seen these like 7-foot tall hairy beasts. And right off the rip, he said charge. So everyone started to charge at these things. Well, there was like a clan of Bigfoot at the edge of the tree line. Most of them ran back into the tree line except for like 3 to 4 of them. They stood their ground. So LaFleur charged as hard as he could. As from what it sounds like, is that he had like a really fast horse, so he kind of gained like a little bit of distance from everybody else.
Does it say how many Bigfoots there were?
It doesn't say, but as far as them killing them, it said 4. It said that they killed 4 of them. So what happened is that Peter LaFleur got there first. I guess one of the Bigfoots was so strong, it took a swing at his horse, broke its neck right away. So LaFleur fell to the ground. Then the other 3 Bigfoots attacked, a bunch of the guys from the Choctaw Nation and stuff like that, and of course the other farmers and stuff. Well, it became like a gunfight. They started shooting at these things. These things are throwing rocks, logs, trying to attack these dudes. Well, at the same time, Peter LaFleur got his horse knocked out. He got up, pulled out his 2 6-shooters, unloaded on this thing. This thing came up to him. It is what it is, guys. This is history. Grabbed his head and ripped it off. Right off the bat, dude. Boom. He was done. Done, right? Done, Steve. So after that, right? So after that, they freaking, so they basically killed the rest of those Bigfoots that were fighting them. And then those other ones just took off. Well, after that was done, they freaking gathered up like the dead on who was left, and they rode in the tree line a little more, and they saw piles and bodies of the missing women and children that were there. That's why it smelled like death, because they were half eaten and just piled up. Yeah. I thought that was really, that's pretty tragic, but that's what it is, man. If anyone wants to look it up, the Bigfoot War of 1855 in LaFleur County in Oklahoma.
I mean, that is definitely a brutal way to go right there.
Bro, I'm like, dude, make a movie, man. Make a freaking movie.
I mean, it sounds like a horror movie, like something out of a horror movie, man. It's like you're looking around like, oh, hey, it's like,
okay,
your head's gone.
Get this though, okay. It's kind of funny because the whole biblical part of it, right? Well, I guess to Hebrew and like the Israelites, and of course in the Bible where it says in the Old Testament, if the women were at their time of the month, right, they would put them on the outskirts of the city, right? So that's what would happen a lot of the times, was they would send the women out on the outskirts of the city, basically just to camp out until they're done menstruating, and they come back in, right? Well, that's when they noticed the connection. A lot of them would go missing was during that time of like their menstrual cycle, because Bigfoot can smell blood,
right?
They can smell, all these other things. So, and of course, the kids would be playing like on the outskirts of the city, of the town, on the tree line and stuff like that. So, I thought that was pretty interesting, man. So, it's a little food for thought. But anyways, that's all I got. So let's get
it. That's a wild story, man. That is a wild story.
Yeah.
Golly.
Yeah.
I never heard anything like that before, man.
Yeah, I will send you the couple of YouTube links I was listening to and also like reading up on. So it's these guys definitely tell it way better, but it was really interesting.
Yeah, man, definitely send it to me. That's definitely want to learn.
All right, cuz, let's get into it, man. What do you got?
So I have been diving into a different period of history that I'm sure maybe a lot of people don't really know about. Have you ever seen the show Shogun?
A little bit, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
Great show. Like, hands down, probably my favorites.
Right, man.
So that is the period I will be talking about, and the period is the Sengoku period of Japan.
That's yeah.
So this
Description
is
of the
known.
Sengoku period. Yep.
So this is known as feudal Japan. Giving you a little brief background of the Sengoku period, it was a constant civil wars. Not just one civil war, but there was constant civil wars throughout almost 200 years. It was from 1467 till 1603. So 130 years of just constant fighting, all for power. Because there's all these different lords and different clans that wanted to take control of Japan, basically for power of themselves, or to expand their beliefs of Buddhism or Christian beliefs too. Because the Portuguese actually landed in Japan around 14, I'm sorry, no, it was actually 1543 is when they started landing in Japan. And during that time is that they're actually spreading Christianity as well. Because the founding of the New World and everything like that.
Yeah.
Of course, you had the Spanish and the English down in Florida and Louisiana. Before that, basically expanding throughout what would be known as the 13 colonies in the United States.
Yeah.
Well, you had the Portuguese basically going around the world into Japan, wanting to spread Christianity.
Yeah.
And they actually encouraged a lot of Japanese to become that belief in Christianity and Jesus. And when I read that there was actually 200,000 confirmed Christians during the Sengoku period during the 130 years. But the Portuguese as well also wanted to conquer Japan. So they were trying to get some of these lords on their side to basically like, hey, you do this for us, you can be a lord of your nation, whatever, but we'll have control. So that they were trying to expand all that. Also during the time too, they were trading weapons, they were trading ammo, basically for cloth, for silk, from what the Japanese had. But there was one lord though, that actually was trying to spread that belief of Christianity, and really other different beliefs too. His name is Lord Odo Nobunaga. Okay, he was actually
Man,
one of the most. He was actually
man.
one of the most well-known lords during the time.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Say that 5 times fast.
yeah, really. I mean, I had to really kind of read it hard to kind of say his name right, but Nobunaga is his name.
Nobunaga. Nobunaga. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. So he was basically trying to want to unify Japan, want to make it into a whole country like what it was before in the past, before all these civil wars broke out. Because this era was actually the most violent era in Japan. Now you would think that it would be, World War II, right? With the thousands of casualties of what the Japanese had. They're not war from actually fighting in China in 1935, and then find us,
Yeah.
from 1941 until 45. But this is actually the most brutal period. Now I don't know the exact amount of casualties that happened, but I did read that it was in the millions during
Yeah.
the Sengoku period. I mean, all that constant fighting. I mean, yeah. And it wasn't big fights too. I mean, there was little small fights, skirmishes and stuff like what I talked about before in the last podcast about small skirmishes. Um,
Yeah.
so there was a lot of that too. But the Portuguese really had a effect on the Japanese culture when it
Yeah.
came to that. And a lot of the Japanese actually started to speak Portuguese and started to speak English as well. Kind of changed, their language. Even though they had their first language of, was Japanese,
Yeah.
but then a lot of them started to actually speak more of the English language, basically trying to comprehend of what the priests were saying, what the really the English and Portuguese sailors that were docking into their ports. Because I mean, you had thousands of ships. I mean, just going in and out basically throughout this whole 130-year period of just brutal conflict. And in the new Assassin's Creed, the new game, which absolutely love that game. It actually is taking place in this period, and it does show about the Portuguese, and it does show the ships, going in and out of port. But during the time around June of 1582, actually June 21st, 1582, Lord Odo Nobunaga met his fate. So that night, him and a few other of his council was at a temple in Kyoto.
Mhm.
I believe it's Kyoto. There he was assassinated. Now, no one actually knows exactly what the motive was for his assassination, because there's multiple different points and different stories and theories of why he was assassinated. But there was one that I actually found that reminds me of a similar assassination that took place a few hundred years, 1963.
Okay.
So,
here we go. Conspiracy
yeah,
time. Let's do it.
exactly. So this is a pretty interesting conspiracy when it comes to this. So it is supposedly Nobunaga was killed by his ally Akachi Mitsuhide. Or he was an ally of Nobunaga for a good 5 years, 10 years or so, for a good while. But it's believed that he hired somebody to lead a rebellion, or he was the one that led the rebellion against Nobunaga, and took about 30,000 troops to the temple where Nobunaga was staying or was at, and invaded his men and actually killed Nobunaga right there.
Yeah.
But no one really knows. Now, I believe that he was killed because of political and religious beliefs,
Mhm.
and for what he was trying to do to Japan, because he was wanting to unify Japan and actually make it whole and basically spread peace throughout the whole nation.
Yeah.
But some lords didn't want that. Some lords wanted the fighting to keep going on because they loved that power, because they loved,
The control.
control. Exactly.
Yeah. So, with that, who do you think was behind it?
It really could be his ally, because the thing about during the Sengoku period is that you couldn't really trust anybody,
Yeah.
because I mean you had priests that were corrupt, you had monks that were corrupt. No, you actually had some monks that actually went and fought during these wars as well.
Yeah.
You had a bunch of different assassination attempts on several other lords, but Nobunaga is the one who somehow gets killed basically 15, 20 years before the actual period ends, before he could actually really see Japan be unified again.
Yeah.
But that's the case. But I really think that it was his ally, Akachi or Akechi. I can't really pronounce his name. But my thing is, what does that sound like?
Sounds like
What
our own self
conspiracy?
JFK, buddy.
Exactly.
Exactly what it sounds like.
So with what happened here with Nobunaga, with
Yeah.
his ally,
And also reminds me of what could have possibly happened with Trump.
yeah,
But
exactly. I'm telling you, with that right there, I mean, with what Akachi did, supposedly what he did to Nobunaga, the same situation what the CIA did to JFK,
yeah.
because JFK was wanting peace and basically have our troops stay out of Vietnam.
Yeah.
Look what happened.
Yeah.
And
Have you
literally
read? Go ahead. Go ahead.
and the thing is, the day after, you know, Kennedy was assassinated, when Lyndon B took office, the first thing that Lyndon B did was send our troops to Vietnam because
Mm-hmm.
he wanted to go to Vietnam. He wanted to go to war.
Want to keep that war machine going.
Exactly. Kennedy did not. He was trying everything in his power that he could to keep our troops out of there.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing of what Nobunaga was trying to do. Was Nobunaga was trying to end the wars, just trying to have peace. Like, guys, we got to stop this madness.
Mm-hmm.
But other political parties, other political leaders didn't like that idea.
Yeah.
They
No
loved
offense
it.
to people out there, but I'm gonna sing it like this. Yeah. We get probably get some people ticked off, but all right, put it. It just goes. You trying to cut off money? We cut off you.
Well, and that's exactly how it went. That's exactly how it went. And a lot of the lords, like I said, were trying to stay away from the Christianity. We're trying to
Yeah.
stay away from all that and stick to the Buddhism. While
Yeah.
Nobunaga was actually trying to influence the Japanese people, like, hey, Christianity is the way to go.
Yeah.
Even though that the Portuguese was basically trying to have that money as well, not only to put the churches in Japan and throughout Asia, but also wanted to control Japan during the Portuguese Empire.
Yeah. He almost
Because
felt like a martyr, my friend. Kind of like a martyr to the people. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, 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 yeah.
This guy was spreading Christianity and love and peace and all that, and trying to do what he could.
Exactly.
Just like just like Jesus, right? His own people crucified him.
Yeah, yeah, and they accused Nobunaga of a lot of different stuff. Like
Yeah.
he was a traitor to the nation. He was corrupt, but oh no, I mean he was trying to create peace.
Yeah.
And again, a lot of these lords were just in their councils trying to figure out, okay, how do we take care of this lord, like corrupt lord or whatever? Like how do we
Yeah.
get him out of the picture?
Take him
Or
out.
and also it could be with money wise too. Who
Yeah.
knows? I mean,
They're probably
it
losing
could
money.
be part of it with the Portuguese.
Yeah.
Because again, the Portuguese was trying to take control of the Japanese islands,
Yeah.
during this period. Not like I said, to expand their empire for one, expand trade, expand wealth, soldiers, trying to recruit the Japanese onto their side. Like, hey, you work for us, we'll pay you, blah blah blah.
Mhm.
But in this period, if you were not a Christian or if you did not actually change into the Christian ways, you were persecuted.
Mm.
Same thing like with Jesus,
Yeah.
because he, persecuted, got nailed to the cross,
Yeah.
and Nobunaga was assassinated. He was killed for
Yeah.
trying to, express that ways.
Yeah. So
Maybe
basically, if you don't denounce your Christianity and you go back to our old ways, if you don't, we're going to persecute you. Yeah.
exactly throw you
Yep.
in jail or kill you.
Yeah.
And a lot of Christian Japanese men and women were persecuted and killed,
Yeah.
whether they said something bad about the church, the Portuguese church, because they were Catholic.
Yeah.
And during the time they were solely Catholic. And if you didn't turn to Catholicism, in this period of Japan, and let's say a lord would do it too. No, a lord would basically be like, hey, if you don't turn to Christianity, commit seppuku.
Oh, kill yourself. Yeah.
Exactly. Or, we'll kill you
Yeah.
or not. Or throw you in jail for months or whatever and let you rot. It's a brutal, brutal time in Sugoku. It was a beautiful time too, because you had a lot of these different temples, a lot of these different, castles being built, like Osaka Castle, uh, one of the more well-known castles in Japan. Um, and then you have, you know, the Port Sakai,
Yeah.
which a lot of trade actually, really some of the main trade that went on in that port alone, were a lot of the Portuguese and Dutch Portuguese, Dutch, and English would set foot in there, dump off their cargo, basically put it into the markets of of the port, and have the Japanese basically sell it off and trade it off, for their goods. Because
Yeah.
during this period too, you had a lot of the Japanese clans, a lot of the Japanese soldiers having guns as well, the English guns, Portuguese guns. So they would take in those weapons and actually use it against, their enemy clans or their enemies alone or bandits, basically.
Yeah.
And again, those muskets, I mean, still not really effective at the time because they were new. Muskets were new because you actually first started having muskets in England. That's when they were first starting to become a thing, and then Portuguese started having them, and then they sent it to Japan, and so it just spread like a wildfire of everybody having this new design, and the Japanese actually used it very well, to be exact.
What's a trip was you're talking about like martyrs and stuff like that, and people getting assassinated. Just on the side note, it kind of remind me of since we're going off of history, right? It remind me of
Mhm.
you ever heard of oh gosh, I don't want to butcher her name, but they call her Saint Perpetua.
Believe I've heard of that before. If I have,
Okay.
it's been a while.
Okay, so basically she was like a Christian martyr, right?
Mhm.
So she was a very, very wealthy Roman woman that converted to Christianity. Well, of course, it was outlawed then, but her parents were hardcore Roman citizens, and they were pleading with her to give up her foolish thoughts and faith and come back, to the true religion, which was the Roman Empire, right at the time.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, she was very wealthy, man. She was really doing good for herself. Well, she opened up like a little, like, she basically opened up her home, helping people out, and she was spreading the gospel, right? Well, she basically got I wouldn't say abducted, but she got like arrested, and she got put in the Coliseum, right, to
Yep.
fight this gladiator. Well, she ain't gonna fight, she got nothing to fight with. So here's where Saint Perpetua basically, where she was like ride or die, right? They told her, look, you have to give up your faith in Jesus Christ. You have to denounce Jesus. If not, we're going to kill you. And she's in the middle of the Coliseum and everyone's going crazy. And she's like, no, I'm good. Well, this gladiator freaking comes down, doesn't fully chop off her head. He hits her right here in the collarbone,
Mm. Mhm.
and knocked her down. Well, his like hands were shaking, right?
Yeah.
And she got back up, grabbed the sword, put it to her throat, and she says, "Here, I'm helping you do this right. That way you don't miss me again." And that gladiator's like, "All right," and he does it again, and he kills her, bro. Like, it was nuts, man. But anyways, yeah, I'll send you the links. Saint
Yeah.
Perpetua, check that out. But anyways,
Yeah, definitely. That
off
and that
topic.
actually that with you talking about that, that actually reminds me of what happened to King Louis the 16th in France during the French
Mm,
Revolution.
yeah,
Because whenever the peasants, not the peasants, but the people of France,
the peasants. Yeah.
at the time that they were very poor because they're being starved by King
Oh
Louis's
yeah.
corruption. But whenever they took King Louis to the guillotine, I mean they had to do the guillotine twice because his neck was so
His neck
large.
was so fat. Yeah.
Exactly. So, literally cut his neck and his head was just hanging a little bit and they didn't
Yeah.
get fully. He was basically still alive. And so they did it again.
What's crazy is that too is that you actually, I think I heard off of a crazy fact, but it's either 30 seconds or 3 minutes of your brain still sending signals after your head gets chopped off. You're still awake, man. You're still alive, but you can't breathe. You're
Yeah,
just like looking around, like,
well,
I
this
don't know.
sucks.
Yeah, dude, I've been talking smack till the end. Ah, you blade suck, just like you.
You think you're bigger?
I know, right? We're all
You
bite you.
ain't.
Oh man.
Yeah, and that's the thing too is when it comes to Sengoku Japan,
Yeah,
you had a lot of basically heads roll
yeah,
because there in time, I mean, you had one of the most deadliest swords, which was the katana sword.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of these actually majority of the clans and uh, shogun, which were kind of like samurai, but more or less like a lesser form. If that makes sense.
I got you.
But they were still warriors. But you had the shogun, and then you had the actual samurai, and
What's the difference on that?
the shogun they were more of, I'd say more of like a small kind of army. That makes sense.
Okay. Like a small
But
gun.
yeah, so they were like samurai, but they had more of like a clan, more of an army of it. So like shogun, you could have an army of them of maybe 500 or so, or 1,000 or 2,000. With the samurai, they're more traditional. They're more, honorable to their lords and stuff. Um, more, combat efficient.
Yeah,
That
so
makes
these
sense.
guys
And
are more, I guess, kind of rogue.
yeah, exactly. And then you had the Ronin, which were lordless samurais.
Yeah.
So, and if you
That,
ever look at,
that's a great movie, 47 Ronin. That's a
oh,
damn good
dude,
movie.
yes, yes, I absolutely love that movie. Um, anyways, yeah, so you see in the movie how they had the straw hats and
Yep.
everything, right? That's what the Ronin was. And
Gotcha.
you actually had quite a few of them in the Sengoku period. Lordless samurais that would basically go on maybe bandit runs, or would sometimes maybe fall in with like the shogun or different clans, basically, but not under the lordship,
Yeah.
because they didn't have a lord. They didn't believe in any of the lords, basically. Um, and they could be brutal too.
Yeah.
They could be brutal,
Dude,
but
that's a trip. I just learned something today. I thought they were all the same. I know there's
no.
a difference between the samurai, the shoguns, and the freaking Ronins.
Mm-mm.
I had no clue, dude.
Yeah, they're all different. And the shogun actually during this period, since the rifles were starting to become more of a thing, a lot of the shogun did have rifles. They had the muskets.
Gotcha.
While samurai stuck to mainly their
Yeah.
katana, and then their uh I cannot remember, because you had the katana, and then you had
Like a
uh
like a little sword.
yeah, like a small blade that
Yeah.
actually went with it. So you had it kind of stacked on each other, and it was on
Yeah.
I think it was like your left hip,
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken, because when you take it, you know, get up. But yeah, so those three things are different, and of course, then you had your archers. You had more of like your guards that would actually protect around the castle. I mean, they could be shogun, or they could be just not monks, but in more of like the
It's
robes, civilian
called
robes.
the Kodashi.
They could, yeah, exactly what they call
The
them.
Kodasha. I mean the katana and the Kodashi. Yeah.
Hmm.
That's pretty
Yeah, I
nice.
knew it was something with a K. I just could not remember what it was. I wanted to say small katana, but it was it was
It started with the K. It's all good.
yeah, the Kadashi. And the Japanese, I mean, had those swords centuries,
Hmm.
for centuries. While Japan's medieval period started in here in the Sengoku era in 1467, you had England's medieval period started in 1066.
Yeah.
So 400 years before Japan's actual medieval. So Japan was living their peaceful life, during that whole period, while England was having their fights against France and Ireland and Scotland and
Yeah.
Spain, basically having control of the castles and their nations and stuff. So Japan was living in peace, and then 400 years later, Japan has their medieval period, their civil wars.
Yeah.
That, I mean, again, brutal time. Um, and bringing it back to the assassination, there was a name for it. It was actually called the Honochi incident.
Onochi. Okay.
Yeah, that's what it was. And there was actually a lot of incidents though that took place. And there's another incident. Cannot remember the name of it. I actually just saw it yesterday or the day before. It was actually about Christians and the Juselites, basically, um, having that as it was about corruption and an uprising, basically, an uprising of the Christian uh, soldiers, of Japan and the church and the monks.
Yeah.
I'll have to send you that one because that actually was interesting as well. But the Hono-Chi incident, though, was the one that really caught my interest because it reminded me of the JFK assassination,
Yeah.
of the political beliefs, the religious beliefs, and basically wanting peace in Japan. Um, but then you had societies as well during this period, secret societies.
Mm.
Okay, so it wasn't just conspiracies because you actually had quite a few during this period. Um, Actually, more than what I thought that there would be. But you had a lot of different secret societies as well, and there was one called the Iko Iki.
Okay.
So it was actually a group that gained political power by encouraging or you know recruiting farmers throughout the whole land. From places like Kyoto, from uh, Sakai, from you know all over these cities to basically rebel against a lot of these lords,
Yeah.
to uh, basically take over the lords or whatever, and express their not express but encourage their beliefs of what they had and encourage their views on the way of the Japanese life.
Yeah.
And that's what the Portuguese was trying to do as well, because they were actually trying to spread the Japanese people into their kingdom, basically, right? Their Christianity, their empire.
Yeah.
Because that's all what the Portuguese was trying to do during this. Yeah, Christians, of course, but just think of the Knights Templars,
Yep.
because the Knights Templars were trying to do the same thing in England and Ireland, basically spread Christianity throughout all of Europe and into Russia. But look at what they were doing, though.
Yep. Killing
They were
people.
also exactly so they were killing people, they were persecuting people, like if they were not, wanting to follow Jesus. And that's what the Portuguese was basically doing as well. Was hey, like what I just talked about a few minutes ago. If you don't believe in Jesus, or if you don't follow the ways of Jesus Christ, you will be persecuted.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, a lot of them did, but it was mainly just for power, control of the Japanese people.
Yeah.
And Nobunaga just did not want that. He was one of the only ones that wanted peace in Japan until
Yeah.
he was assassinated.
Those lights out.
Yeah. So there's a lot, with that, but the Iko Iki was one of the more well-known secret societies of that, because the recruiting the farmers for political gain, like what Hitler did.
Yeah.
Hitler had formed the Farmers Party in Germany around 1933,
Mm.
1932-ish, somewhere in there, right? For political gain, for political power, because he was one to express his you know political views of what he wanted for Germany. And of course, in 1935, he became chancellor,
Yep.
and
And
then
then just progress from there. Yeah.
1938, was known as dictator, and then 39, World War II breaks out when he invaded Poland.
Yep.
You know, but while everybody else was trying to create peace, of course, during the time of peace, there's also time of war.
Yep.
Same thing, like I said, with Japan. And there was other more brutal parts, when it came to the Japanese culture. Um, like if you ever seen the movie The Last Samurai,
Love that movie.
love it too, man. I can't tell you how many times I've seen it. um, so that's actually a true story as well when it comes to that.
Really?
So, and in some way, Japan was still kind of at war with each other, basically with the samurai and with the shogun and the actual Japanese soldiers that were underneath the British crown. It was
Yeah.
not the United States. It was
Yeah.
actually England. And the character that Tom Cruise plays is actually a real character, but uh, I'll have to actually send you information on that, a picture of the actual person who was in command of the samurai at the time, trying to
Yeah, man. Send it to
basically,
me. I want to check that out.
yeah, basically trying to protect the samurai from being destroyed completely because it
Yeah.
was their way of their culture. It was their way of life. I mean, for centuries, not just the Sengoku period, but before that too, in the 1200s, because in 1211 is when the Mongolian Empire invaded Japan. First
Mm,
time, first time a foreign power invaded the Japanese islands,
yeah.
right? And of course, the Mongolians actually had control of Japan for a while until I think it was about 10 years later is when Japan actually gained it back and kicked the Mongolian Empire out. And then, of course, 200 years later, they fight each other.
Yeah.
Like, okay, great. Got the same thing with us. Yeah. Hey, we have independence and we gained peace from England. Woohoo! Yay! Now we're going to war with each other. What?
Right.
So, and yeah, civil wars for centuries have been big parts of the world itself. I mean, the the Russian Civil War that took place in 1919, 1918, after World War One, they went to war with each other for you know government reasons. England having a civil war with each other, with us, and it was all because of two different things, like what I talked about, peace and control.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, today you still see a lot of that, like in Syria, for years, and I don't know if it's still going on though, if the Syrian civil war, or I think it was Syria, um, that civil war that went on for about 15 years, 20 years, whatever, over there
Mhm.
in that
Yeah.
country. I don't know if it's still going on or not, but I mean, in modern times now, I mean, you still have constant civil war that goes on.
Dude, to me in the Middle East, bro, it's gonna be war until Jesus comes back. Like that place is
Exactly, exactly.
straight up, dude. They're hardcore.
And unfortunately, it will come at some point, whether China invades Thailand or if somehow Russia actually decides to not have peace with us
Mhm.
or the other UN nations. Because I actually just read, I believe it was actually this morning, that Canada has now disposed peace and actually ended our relationship with each other, with the United States and Canada.
Really?
Yes.
I have to check that out because I know they got
After,
Trudeau out of there.
yeah, yeah. So, but the new prime minister has now cut ties with the United States.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So that's a okay.
Well,
You
it
do
kind
you,
of
Canada. Good luck.
yeah, that
No
kind of
offense
needs
to
kind of leaves the
yeah.
back door open. But hey, they had a awesome freaking gate, which was the United States. So okay,
hmm
I'll have to check that out and do some more research on that. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
and it's funny that the English were basically trying to gain land and control of the Canadian region during the French and Indian War.
Yeah.
'Kay, that's where majority of the fighting actually took place up there in the Canadian region. And
Yeah.
trying to think of one. It'll come to me, but obviously England won that and got the French out. Canada actually moved them more out west. So fine, we'll just go over here then, or just leave the country.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like with Japan. Uh, After the Sengoku period, a lot of the Portuguese and a lot of the English, a lot of the Dutch, more Europeans actually started pouring in, but majority of the Portuguese kind of started to leave because it's like, okay, we've done our job, we did what we could, or we did what we could, we're leaving now. And they did build at least maybe good close to 100 churches, maybe a little bit less in
Yeah.
Japan during that period in Sengoku, Japan. Because again, spread Christianity. But
Yeah.
there was actually a lot of churches and a lot of temples that were built for Jesus alone. And you would see a lot of the Japanese have crosses,
Yeah.
the crosses on their necks and stuff like, hey, to symbolize like I believe in Jesus Christ.
Uh-huh.
And like I said before, then they believed in Buddhism. A
Yeah.
lot of the Asian regions, like in India or not India, is it India? Yeah, like in India and Japan, China, and the majority of them actually still believe in Buddhism today.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, of course, the religions are never going to go away.
Uh-huh.
I mean, you'll have Christianity will still go on for years to come. You will still have Buddhism. You'll still have um, the Quran. You'll still have all these other religions that are out there. I mean, for centuries, the Greeks believed in mythology.
Yep.
Poseidon, Zeus, Thor, or not Thor. That was
That was up
Norway.
north in the north.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was Norway. Well, yeah, but
Hercules,
with
all that. Yeah.
with Thor, I mean, you had Norway and Sweden, in that in the medieval period in 900s, 800s, they believed in Thor, Odin, Loki as their gods. Thor, god of thunder, lightning; Odin, the All Father; Loki, the god of mischief. Mm. Uh, but you had the Greeks and the Romans believing in the mythology like Poseidon, Zeus, Hades, you know, which kind of ties in, with Christianity. You know, Zeus and Hades, Jesus and Satan.
Yeah.
Basically. So, but of course, throughout the years, then the Greeks started becoming Christianity. Then the Romans started becoming Christianity stuff.
Yeah.
You have the Pope, which we can
That's another
discuss.
ball chain. We'll do
Yeah,
that.
that's another.
That's another episode, man. With freaking out the whole.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's a
Going
whole
over there.
different.
The
Because
whole
man,
Smithsonian's and all that, buddy.
dude, there is some stuff I want to talk about, and that right there, man.
All right, we're gonna have to schedule another episode on that one, bro.
Yes, because
Have to
there's a
bring it.
lot on there's
We're
a
gonna have
lot on
to.
that.
We're gonna bring a couple mugs in here. I'll probably bring Joe on here too.
Yeah, because I know he'll probably want to talk about that too, about the Pope and about the church, and
Yeah.
you know.
Oh, Dirty P, Dirty Pope.
Mm. Yeah, I've actually been reading a lot on that, a little bit too about that. But yeah, for the last couple of weeks though, Sengoku has really had my interest in this period because I've always loved the medieval periods, with England and Ireland and stuff. But this really has caught my interest a lot because not only how brutal it actually really was, but just how the Christianity aspect took into play when it came into all these different lords, and that led to actual assassinations because there was actually more than one assassination that took place. It wasn't just Nobunaga.
Yeah.
There was actually a couple other lords that were assassinated due to kind of religious beliefs and political powers.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to definitely send you information about uh, a bunch of this because, like I said, there was a lot for 130 years of just constant fighting, civil
Yeah.
wars. I mean, there's so much more than actually, what I've been explaining today in this episode. 'Cause it is insane, brother. It is absolutely insane. And there's a lot of cool different paintings too on it. And that was one thing too I'm going to say as well is that during the Sengoku period, you had a lot of beautiful culture in a sense.
Yeah.
Like I said, a lot of the shrines that were being built, a lot of the castles, um, the way that a lot of the actual Japanese people dressed, in the different kind of color robes, and just the actual outfits of the soldiers, what they wore, um, and then the different paintings, the different photos that you see like on Google and stuff, real paintings. It definitely just kind of gives you a real cool glimpse of really what that period was like, but just the shape of art that then spread out throughout the world, where all these artists came into play, and a lot of these English settlers, a lot of these Portuguese settlers came in and started to become artists as well, and painting all the different ways the Japanese culture, how they ate, how they slept, how they moved around, what their day was like, painting lords, in their attire, and basically what they did and stuff. But again, you had to have like very, very special permission for that, because you can't just walk in a temple somewhere like, "Heyo," I can't do that.
Yeah,
because you will be brought down. But it's very, very interesting period for sure, to say the least, and honestly one of the more interesting periods in Japan from what I've actually read.
gotcha, bro. Well, anything else, big guy, before we close it up?
Well, nah, just that I will send you more information on this if you actually want to learn more about the Sengoku period, or anything about feudal Japan itself.
Yeah.
Like I said, you know me, man. I'm all ears. Just ask me questions. I'll shoot it off, man. I'll tell you any information that I know.
That's cool, man. Speaking of that, dude, if people need to get a hold of you and stuff, where can people find you at? They want to know information.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram, under Brice Witherow, and you can also find me on Facebook with the same name, Brice Witherow. But yeah, follow me, hit me up if you have any questions. I'll be feel free to answer them. Any kind of topics in history you want to go over, or if you want to learn, like what Drew said in the last episode, I am like an encyclopedia. So just I can say anything you want to know. So just follow me, hit me up.
That will work, man. And as far as that, brother, yeah, we definitely appreciate you coming on, and definitely got to get you in the show again with you and Joe, and maybe I'll probably have like 5 dudes on this thing. We'll be talking about the Vatican,
dude,
bro.
That's what I'm saying. Like there's so much conspiracy when it comes to that, dude, and all
right, we'll definitely put that in for real for either April, if not latest May. So on that, man, appreciate you, Brice. Yeah, if you guys need to get a hold of them, I have everything down in the show notes. Also, too, in this little bar right here that's running, you guys can hit them up on Instagram. Look up Brice Witherow, and it'll pop up. Or go on to Cryptidwarfare Instagram. Look up friends. You'll find them on there too. So, but anyways, Brice, appreciate you, man. Always good learning from you. And yeah, if you guys need any history lessons or anything, hit this dude up. So yeah, you guys need any prayer requests? You guys got anything you guys want to talk about when it comes to conspiracies, or you guys had any encounters or anything like that, shoot me an email, cryptidwarfare@gmail.com, or hit me up on Instagram or Facebook. So yep. And yeah, hope you guys have a blessed week, and let's get this weekend started.
Yes,
let's do it.
Sir.
All right, buddy. Appreciate you. Later.
Yes, sir. See ya.